Hello, this is Jim McKeeth, and welcome to this webinar on enterprise connectors, social media, and mining for data. This is an introduction to enterprise connectors and look at how to use them to connect to social media, specifically Twitter and Facebook, and what kind of data you can mine from there. Real quick, my name is Jim McKeeth. I'm the Chief Developer Advocate and Engineer here for Embarcadero Technologies, longtime software developer, C#, Delphi, C++, C, Java, Objective-C, Swift. I don't know. I've done quite a few languages, and my favorite is Delphi, so that's what I'll be using today. Our agenda, like I said, brief introduction to enterprise connectors. Hopefully you're familiar with these. If not, I'll give you some brief information about it. But then we're going to show how to connect to Facebook and Twitter, some of the data that's available, example queries, and then we'll mine for data and show you how to make a local copy of the data.
What are the enterprise connectors? They're fire duct drivers for 100 plus popular data sources, including NoSQL data sources, big data databases, client relationship managements, enterprise ERPs. I can't remember what all these acronyms stand for. There's a lot of different stuff out there it connects to. Like I said, over 100 of them. And the cool thing about these, so we have the REST components that we ship, the REST client components that you can use to connect to most of these things because they are REST services. But the cool thing about the enterprise connectors that we build with CData is it gives you a SQL 92 interface to read, write, update, insert, delete data from these sources. So what that means is that you can take your existing skills you have in writing SQL queries and use those to access data from this huge variety of data sources, which is really kind of cool, actually. Quite powerful. It's interesting that you can, for example, you can use it to, with social media, you can do an insert statement to post to Facebook or to tweet on Twitter. Stuff like that. You can, update where appropriate, delete where appropriate. So that's one thing, is that because you are interfacing through a API, it's not actually a database. There are rules about how you can query and what you can update, what you can delete and such. I'll mention some of those rules and I'll give you links to the documentation where you can find out the rest of the rules. The CData components are available in Get and they're licensed through 2 different bundles. So if you go to the website there, embarcadero.com/product/enterprise connectors, you can find out more information about the licensing and how to license it. And you can download them from Get or you can download them from CData's website. So CData, they create this ODBC layer that does the magic of turning a REST or some sort of API endpoint into a data source. And we worked with them to create these FireDAC components that interface with that ODBC component, ODBC layer, so that you can use them from Delphi or C++ Builder. So one comment about licensing here, and this is a really important point that a lot of people miss. You can go to CData's website and you can buy the ODBC components directly from them. If you want to buy the FireDAC components, which are the enterprise connectors, you buy those from us. They have information on the website, the documentation, downloads on their website and such. But there's a difference in the licensing. Okay, and if you don't understand this difference, you might think the ODBC drivers are a better price. If you buy the ODBC driver from CData, it's per user license, per seat license, okay? So if you are going to build an application and you're gonna have 10 users using it, you would have to buy 10 licenses or 11 licenses, one for you and one for each of your users, okay? If you get the enterprise connectors from Embarcadero, they're royalty-free distribution. So the licenses are per developers. So in that example, if you're developing an application for 10 users, you would buy one license and then redistribute your application to your 10 users, and they would all 10 be able to use them. Now, they're both sold on subscriptions. With the CData ones, I'm not positive of this, actually, I'll be honest, but I believe at the end of your subscription that it quits working. Where with Embarcadero, the build ends with subscription. If you don't renew your subscription, you can no longer build it, but you're continued able to distribute it, right? So if you create an application, you sell that application, a user's using that application, and you decide, you know what, I'm not going to renew my license, your application will still keep working just fine, but you won't be able to make new versions of it until you decide to renew your license, renew your subscription. Whereas with the CData ones, with the ODBC components, and they have a couple other types like JDBC and ADO.NET and things like that. Those, because they are per user, they expire, and you no longer have the usage of those when the subscriptions expire. So that's an important differentiation there. So make sure you're evaluating it correctly. So that the enterprise connectors that we provide are a much better deal if you're ever going to have anybody else using it besides you. So how do you use enterprise connectors? You install them from Get It, and you're going to have a Fizz CD something driver link. So TFD Fizz CD Facebook driver link component, for example, or Twitter driver link component, or any of the other types of data sources they have. And you put that on the form, add that on your form, and that's going to add the unit and users clause. And then you're going to put it on an FD connection component, and then you're going to select the matching CData driver ID in the connection editor. So you're going to edit your connection editor just like you do with any other database you've connected to with FireDAC, and select the Twitter or the Facebook driver ID. Then you can provide the connection details, which I'll go through and explain. And then once you've done that, you can use it just like any other FireDAC database connection with FD query. Like I said, it uses ODBC on the back end, but they are working on a Linux version of it as well. If you do want to provide access on other devices like Android or iOS, then you're going to want to use RAD server as your middle layer, right? And use the enterprise connector components at the RAD server layer, and then broker that data over the internet through RAD server. Or I guess you could use another middle tier if you want to use Data Snap or roll your own REST service or whatever you want to do. You can certainly do that as well. So let's take a look at Twitter. So you need to create your Twitter app account with Twitter, and you go to the URL there. You can create an account. It's free to do. You can, I don't know, there's a limit to them, but you register it and it gives you an API key and secret. You can keep track of that. You're going to want to set the callback URL for your application to 127.0.0.1 or localhost, because that's what's going to redirect to on the client side when the OAuth connects and authorizes the application. Then on your application, you're going to put the Fizz link component down, like I mentioned before, and the FD connection on your app, and then configure the FD connection, which I'll show you how it does in a second. And once you've done that, it's just like any other connection, and you can get a list of all the tables by calling get tables on the quick connection. That actually gives you a list of connect tables and views. And you can find the documentation from CData here, and this is actually very, very detailed. There's lots of good information here, so do you want to check this one out? cdn.cdata.com/help/RTC/fire. You'll actually get a local copy of this. Fires for FireDAC. RTC, I think the T means Twitter. I can't remember. Anyway, this is weird, but this is the part that specifies Twitter. This specifies FireDAC. This specifies help. If you just go to cdn.cdata.com/help, you can drill in to get to this URL here. You just say Twitter and select FireDAC. But there's lots of good information here. When you install the components locally, you get a local copy of this, which is useful, or you can go read it online. So this is what your Twitter page is going to look like, where you're going to be setting this up. And you get your consumer API key here and your consumer API secret here. You don't want to share this, but you can clear it if you like. Oops, I accidentally shared a screenshot like I just did now. You can regenerate that and it gives you a new one. So this is no longer the API secret I'm using anymore. You can change your access levels here. So by default, it's only read and write, but you can modify it to add direct messages. And that's really all you need to do for Twitter. Twitter's really easy to set up. On here, you're going to put the callback URL and also set this to get and refresh for the initiate OAuth. And what that does, by default, I think it's get. It says off is the default. Yeah. So what get and refresh does is this means the first time you run it, it's going to go out and create a new OAuth authentication token and then save that token. And then get and refresh, what that means is that the next time you connect, it's going to use the existing token and refresh it. Okay, so with OAuth, you get a token that you can save, and that token has a lifespan that's only good for so long. And then you get a URL you can use to refresh that token so you don't have to re-authenticate again. And so what get and refresh does is it will automatically handle that refreshing for you. So that means, in theory, you should never have to re-authenticate again, which is very nice. It just saves all that for you. The location it saves it is in this path here. So this is the default. You can change this to wherever you want it to be. For example, make it specific to your application, since it's going to be CData, Twitter data provider for all of them. So if you have multiple ones that different users are logging into, then it would be overriding this. So you definitely want to change this to be local to your application. And then you can set what you want to have caching here, and then specify where you want it to cache to. If you specify cache location, it's caching it in a local SQLite database. So in here, I'm going to cache queries and metadata, or query results here. I can't remember what auto-cache. Oh, auto-cache sets up to auto-cache. I don't have query results turned on. So you might turn query results on. That will cache your query results, and this will cache your metadata, which is the description of the tables, columns, table names and columns and such. So that will speed up your performance. You can also use a cache connection, and what this will do will let you create use a connection string to connect to a database and store the data there. But probably for most situations, you probably just want to use the SQLite cache, whatever you want to do. Again, this is just for performance. If you're doing a lot, I guess you might want to use a cache connection instead. So here are the tables that you get from Twitter. Tweets, right, is all your tweets on Twitter. You can also look at what you favorited, who you're following, and if you set up direct message privilege, which isn't on by default, you can look at direct messages sent and received. You can post to these to post direct messages. I guess to send, you can send direct messages through here. You can create, delete, and query tweets here, create, delete, and query a list of users that a current Twitter account is following, which are your friends, and then favorites here as well. So see here, you can query and delete direct messages, and here you can send direct messages and query messages. All right, so that's pointing out the difference of what you can do in these. So you can't delete these apparently. So these are views that you use. So this just kind of simplifies something, it provides some of the information you might want. Here's a list of retweets of your retweets. So an important point here is these are, if you just select splat from tweets, select star from tweets, it's going to give you your Twitter stream. So it's going to give you all tweets. You can use a search parameter to search tweets, or you can specify you want it for you, the current user, or any other user. But by default, it's going to give you all the tweets. Whereas retweets is only for, you know, the currently authorized authenticated user, which is the user that logged in. So you can look up lists, members of lists. So once this gives you a list of lists, and this gives you the members of a specific list. This gives you followers for the current Twitter account, your account settings, and users. So this is where you could look up users. So once all this here is going to give you pretty much everything you can do through any other Twitter application. They also have some ad-related Twitter views that you can use. So if you're doing ads on Twitter, you can use that for this, which might be useful if you are running an advertising campaign on Twitter. You could monitor that via your application here. So that can be very, very useful if you are doing advertising on Twitter. So here's an example query. So we're going to select star from tweets, and we're going to specify greater than a certain date, and specify the from user screen name. So if you don't do this, it's going to give you all the tweets from everybody, which may or may not be what you're trying to accomplish. So a few notes about querying tweets. If you don't specify the from username, then it gets timeline tweets. you can use the limit to restrict the number of records returned if you don't want to get all of them, you just want to get a few records. And then max ID is what you use to page through the data, if you will. Okay, max ID or min ID. So max ID gets tweets after that ID. So by default, it's the most recent tweets. So you're starting now and going back through time. So the tweets are going back through time. And so if you get your lowest ID and then specify max ID with that lowest ID, then it will then get the tweets after that ID. And so it'll get the next page of tweets, if you will. Min ID goes the other direction and gets the tweets before that ID. You can use search terms, for example, with a hashtag in here to search all the tweets for that term. You can combine search terms with from user screen name or whatever to do other things as well. Yeah, so to get the next page, you find the smallest ID returned, which is the oldest tweet, set max ID to it, and repeat the query, which I'll show you an example of that. But first, let's talk about Facebook. Same sort of situation here. You're going to create your Facebook app here at apps. The thing that's going to be different, though, is you need to specify a port number. I just picked a random port number here. You might want to specify a few different port numbers and then check to see which ports are open. Facebook changed their security recently so that you can't just specify localhost or 127.0.0.1. You have to include the port number on it if you're going to be redirecting to a port number. So it doesn't let you, it doesn't treat all port numbers the same, or at least in my testing it didn't. Beyond that, everything's the same except in your connection component, you need to make sure this matches this. So it's possible that the machine you're running on may have something at this port. So like I said, you might specify a few ports on the Facebook app, or the Facebook app definition. You can specify multiple URLs, and then on the local machine, query those. And if one is not available, change it to a different port to there. So here's the Facebook RTC. I think that's the same. That's the Twitter link. I'll have to check that. I think it's RFC for Facebook. Anyway, just go to cdncdata.com/help and you can dig in and find the Facebook one. Other than that, everything's gonna be the same. So this is what your page will look like on Facebook. There, you get the information from two different places. So your app ID is here, and you have to type your password to get the app secret. And you're going to go down here to Products Facebook Login, and that's where you specify the OAuth redirection URL, like you see here. And then you put that information into the connection editor. So here's some of the Facebook tables that you could get information from. One note is comments. You have to specify a target or specify a target, okay, if you're querying this. Comments for a target. So if you do likes, you can do likes for a target and it'll tell you if the user likes it or not. If you don't specify likes, then it gives you everything they've liked. So it gives you a list of likes. Try to remember, it seems like I tried milestones and it didn't give me anything. Date or deleted. Oh, so this you have to be authenticated as a page instead of as a user, which I thought was interesting. I haven't tried that yet. Users let you search users by search terms or ID, and then posts gives you a list of posts for the target, a target based on either the target or the ID. Or if you don't specify it, then it gives you for that current user. There's a lot of views as well. I'm not going to give you a list of views. But here's some details on selecting Facebook posts. So when you're selecting a post, so you can say target equals user ID, or you can say select star from posts where ID equals post ID. So the target represents a user, a page, event, or other valid entity that may have posts for it. So you can get all the posts on a page, for example, or any other entity. So you can find the entities via other mechanisms. If no target is specified, the authenticated user will use the target, and so it'll give you all the posts for you. Facebook's different that way in that Facebook, they don't give you a way to access your news feed through the API. The only way you can access your Facebook news feed or is through the Facebook application. That's because they build that using special algorithms and stuff. I guess they really are protecting that. They really want people to go through the Facebook apps or through the Facebook website to get to that. But you can dig into specific targets. If you know a specific post, you can use it here and just get information just for that one post. So this will return one row, but it'll give you all the details about that row. And you can specify times to look for within a certain time range. When looking at likes, pulling likes, here, for example, is a likes on a certain target. So this will tell you, so the target will tell you username or ID of the entity. It'll give you all the likes for that specific target. And then if you don't specify it, then it'll give you all the likes for the currently authenticated user, where it says here. And then you can see if okay, this is pages that they like. If target represents username, likes, treat for username or okay, yeah. So this is the same thing. There's two different examples, and then this says that you'll get all of them. Okay, so the comments, like I said, is like a detail. You always have to specify a target or ID here. So here, you can retrieve a specific comment, the comment with that ID, or here you can retrieve all the comments on something else. So this could be a post, for example, and you can retrieve the comments on that post. One note about that is the comments are nested. Okay, so I guess just one level deep. So if you have a post and you query the comments on that post, you're only going to get the top level comments. If you want to get the nested comments, you have to do the comments on the comments. So you get the ID of the comment, and then you can find out what the comments are on that. And then for users, you can use search terms to get all the users matching this name, or you can look up a specific user. If you, I think if you don't specify it, this is going to give you the user, which is if you say just select star from users, it gives you the current user. And then once you have the user, you can get information about that user. Once you have the user ID, so you could search for a user, get their user ID, and then query their posts for that user ID. Okay, so now it's time for a demonstration really quick.
This is a little social media miner I created. I did this, I wanted to show the way you can just use SQL to query this, which I think is really, really powerful. So I'll walk you through the code here, and then I'll run this and show you some example queries. I've put all the components here on a data module. I have here the links components to connect to this. And really, once you put these down, I don't think you need them anymore. I think all they do is add the license file or the unit files to the source to your users clause. Actually, I should take those off and see what happens. Yeah, it still works. So I'll connect to Twitter there. So first of all, we'll walk you through the components. So you have your connection component here, FD connection. And in here, you can't see this whole thing. So I probably should blur that out. But I've changed here to get and refresh like I showed. And also you want to set the callback URL to have the port. On Twitter, you don't do that. But on Facebook, you want to set the port. And that's a change in Facebook's security, I guess, that they've done recently. Also, I set up cache location here and told it to cache metadata and auto cache. So you can go here and check these folders out. And this is also where it saves your OAuth information. So let me copy that to the clipboard and jump out here to, okay, here we go. I've already got it open. So this is where it's going to cache my OAuth settings and cache my any data files, so it speeds up performance a little bit. So let me get rid of the Twitter one here as well. So this way it'll cause me to have to authenticate again, so you can see what that looks like. That's all the changes I made here. Oh, cache query results. You can see the ones in yellow are the ones I changed here. So, and then here on the Twitter one, I did not set the URL or the port on the URL for the callback URL. And then this, I did a batch move. So this does a dataset reader that is pointing to this query, the FD query that I used to query the connection. And so what this will do is this will use the dataset reader, will go through the batch move to to go to the dataset writer, which is SQL writer. Actually, this should be connect MySQL, or SQLite, not interface. SQLite. I ended up using SQLite instead. It would work with Interbase, but with Interbase, apparently either I don't know how to do it, or you have to create the table that you're posting it to first, because Interbase has different rules about the data types than this query is going to use. So you'd have to set up the mappings correctly. But SQLite is really loose with its data types because it's not really a real database, I guess, would be a fair thing to say. And so it just is able to create the table for you automatically there. In the code here, one bit of interesting code here. So I talked to you about how use the max ID to walk through the query. So what this does is this finds my most famous tweet. Okay, so the first thing it does is it selects ID and retweet count from Twitter retweets and orders by retweet count and gets the top one. Okay, so what that's going to do is going to look for in each batch, because it only pulls back a small batch at a time, it finds the tweet that had the most retweets. And then we select the minimum ID from that same batch to get the end of the block. Okay. And so what we've done now is we have a loop that we go through, and we loop until, then we go through and we do the same query again, but we say where max ID equals, and we use the next ID, which is right here, that we pulled from the first query. All right. And then we check to see if the fame, which is the number of retweets, is greater. Oh, this should be, fame equals, oh wait, well, that's the, okay. Fame, apparently. So this worked, but apparently if it doesn't check to see if, one as integer. Okay. I wasn't pulling the fame. So it gets if this was my most famous one, it wouldn't never keep it because I wasn't storing the fame. Okay. So it saves the ID of the top tweet and the fame, which is the number of retweets. And then down here, we just go through and repeat it again, but for different max IDs. And then what that does is it goes through and pages through the different sets until it finds the most famous tweet for me, and then returns the ID, which is 0, as the result. And then here we just have a break if the next ID equals the current ID. So that means we've reached the last block. Then we just break. And that's the only bit of code here I wrote in this part. So in my form, I have on each button here, I just clear the list of tables and columns, and then I open the connection, just like you would any other database. And then I say get table names. So I get a list of all the tables, and I store that in LB tables. Do the same thing for Twitter as Facebook here. And then as soon as you click a table, then all I do is get if it's Facebook tables, then I get it from Facebook. If it's Twitter tables, I get it from Twitter, and I get the columns for that table. And then if you double click on a table name, then I just create a little sample query there for you. It's a select all. And if you double click on a someplace here, Maybe I took that out. Let's find out. Okay, so let me run this now. So this button here is going to connect me to Twitter, and it's going to pop up my browser. Now, if you are connecting to or doing this via server, so let's say you have the CData component in your server, your RAD server, so it's your middle tier, you can set up to do a different callback, so it'll actually send the URL down to the user, and the user will have to sign in on a remote machine. But that's not the way I set it up now. There's information in the documentation on how to do that. So I'm going to say authorization. Now you'll notice here, it's redirected, and it picks a random URL. So it set up a HTTP server on a random URL, and it redirected me to that. Now on Twitter, the random port number doesn't matter, but on Facebook it does, and that's why we stored that. So now we've connected to Twitter, and we've got a list of all the tables. So these are the tables here, and then these are the views down here. So tweets, or I can come down here to retweets. Okay, and then if I double click this, then it's going to give me select star from retweets. And then I think I thought I had this here. Let me see if it does it. Yep, I do. So if you double click on that, then it adds that there. So you can just select individual columns if you wanted to. Okay, so this one here is going to do that famous tweet, which is the code I just showed you there. And so what this is going to do is it's going to go through and spin through all those tables, or all those tweets, the pages of tweets. And it took a few seconds there. And it grabbed the ID of that and then created a query that if I run this query now, it will pull up my most famous tweet with the count and the favorites. So how many times it was retweeted and how many times it was favorited and when I created it. So that tweet kind of took off there on me. It was pretty cool. It was exciting for a few days. I kept getting notifications about it. My 5 minutes of fame, as it were. So let's see. You can, there's, like I showed, there's lots of different data here you could dig into and look at. So I will show this here. Let's see. I'll come back here to my data module and go to the connection. And I'll go here and say select star from tweets. I think it's empty. It's not empty. Okay, so let's delete that. Delete from tweets. And now if I select star from tweets. So this is the SQLite table. Okay, no rows selected. And make sure that's not connected because SQLite doesn't have connection sharing. So now if I use this one here, this is going to do the batch move. And so all it does is calls batch move execute, and I have those components set up. Oh, I got to drop the table, I think, because this worked when I was writing it. Drop table tweets. No credentials. Is that login prompts off? Okay. So let's try this again. Null constraint failed tweets ID. Oh, I don't have any tweets. So let me execute this. I need a direction. Okay, so now if I come in here, I'm not sure why I was getting that error message. I clearly was messing around with something I shouldn't have been messing around with. Select star from tweets. And we'll see we now have database is locked. Of course it's locked because this is opened. So let's close that, run this again. Like I said, SQLite does not have connection sharing. So there we go, 803 rows selected. So that page of tweets that I had opened, right, the set of tweets I had opened, 803 of them. And it moved all those into my table. So the great thing about this is I could go through and page through all of those tweets using the max ID and save all those off, and then I could work with all of them at once. So that's kind of the way if you wanted to pull all your data out of your social media to work with, you could do that there. And that's just using, we have I should put a link in here for the ETL demo. It's really easy to use those. I will show you a little bit more information here on the tweets. So let's get all the tweets. Okay, there we go. Execute that. Now in here, I didn't specify a user ID. So this is actually this is a stream of all tweets. Okay, this isn't just my tweets. If I want just my tweets, so retweets would be just my tweets or my retweets. But here, if I want my tweets, then I need to specify the user. What is it? Screen name. From screen name. Where from, I could do this here, right? Where from screen name equals. Okay, so now these are just my tweets. So that one's already got 604 retweets. Wow, what was this one? Oh, I retweeted somebody else. This is tweet. That's why. So you can narrow this down and stuff like that, but this gives you an idea of some of the stuff you can find. There's my user location, which I guess is hard coded because I don't live in Boise. I live outside Boise. But see right here, you can see the from user profile URL. So that would be, I can get it, copy this, and we can go into my browser window here. And so there's my from user profile. We can come in here and get my profile URL image. So there's the small profile image. Let's see what else you can find here. Here's a list of URLs, hashtags, if there's hashtags in it, users I'd mentioned. But anyway, so there's lots of data you can dig in here and look into. But kind of give you an idea of what you can find there. So now let's take a look at Facebook. So Facebook's going to pop up and ask me to authorize. Oh, I'd already authorized it. So the URL, I hard-coded the port, and oh, dang it, I can't unauthorize it. So yeah, because it's already authorized once, it's not going to ask me to authorize it again. Otherwise, it'd pop up. You've probably seen that, and it'll list all the different privileges you want. One note about that, on the Facebook component, let's see here. Where is that at? I think, I'm trying to remember what was that. Oh, so this is useful here. The timeout. You probably want to set this low while you're debugging. And so what this is especially like in logging in, if this is how many seconds it waits before it assumes the login failed. All right. So if you do something and the login fails, the default 60 seconds, and you don't have to wait 60 seconds before the app comes back and says, it failed. So I set it down lower to, so I didn't have to wait full 60 seconds. So you may want to do that. Let me see if I can find, I don't see that. It seems like there was a way, it's probably in the documentation, to change what permissions it's asking for. I don't see that there though. Anyway, so here we've got Facebook, and let's look, I'll get my posts from Facebook posts. Now this is by default is my posts. So I've ran this here. From name Jim McKeeth. So these are all my posts and not my stream. So again, that's explaining the documentation so that you can see, you know, what your, what the rules are about how to, do the queries. So here's my picture, right? So I can do this, and, you know, I could do, use an HTTP component to download this picture. Apparently I didn't get the full URL. There we go. So that's a picture of me with my daughter when she painted my, did my eyebrows for me. Eyeliner. There's a link I had here, and I'm not sure where that one came from. Let's see. Here's a picture. If I included a picture in there, is that what this one is? hopefully I'm not going to post anything embarrassing here. Oh, that's a picture of me again. Facebook icons, source URLs. So yeah, again, lots of stuff you can dig through and find in here. How many comments were on it? How many likes? So comments are, you're going to do like a master detail. So if I want to get comments, so we'll assume, let's see if I can get, so here's the ID. Let me make sure this isn't something embarrassing before I, oh yeah, this is a local restaurant. So I can do comments where target ID equals, oops, except it's a string, I believe, because it's too big to be a number. Nope. Okay, it's just target. So that's telling me that I specified the wrong thing. Okay, so here we go. Josh, a friend of mine, posted a comment on there saying they're just down the road. So that the Empanadas place is just down the road from him. He loves going there too. It's a great little restaurant. If you're in Boise, Idaho, Tango's Empanadas is really good. Okay, and I'm not sure why. Oh, there we go. It wasn't giving me the that thing. I don't know. Anyway, there you go. That's kind of the little example of data mining. I wasn't, so this is using the synedit SQL with SQL syntax highlighting on it, which I thought was kind of a cool touch. You could use a query builder, like TMS has a query builder you can use to build queries. You could do that. But again, you just want to make sure you're following those rules that are there about what to query and how the queries work, because it's not, remember, you're not actually pulling data directly, but instead you're using SQL to create queries against their API. For more information, if you want to know more about enterprise connectors, you can go to the homepage here, Embarcadero.com products enterprise connectors. You can also visit the CData pages, which this is their main page. This is the download page where you can download the individual connectors instead of downloading them from Git. They're not all in Git. Most of them are in Git though. Where you can get the 30-day trial there as well if you don't have the license. And then you can find the help here to find the help from CData. You do get the help, a local copy of the help downloaded. So if you don't need necessarily go online for it, but if you do want to, it is available there online. To find out more about the batch move, the ETL that I was showing, you can check out this YouTube replay link here. This is on FireDAC ETL. Right here with Pavel. And then also you can check out the DocWiki page on using batch move and also the code examples for using batch move. Really powerful stuff there. I love using it for importing and exporting, for example, CSV files. And yeah, so very powerful. And then like I showed there for moving data between databases, pulling the data from Twitter or Facebook and storing it in a local database. Also, I'll include a link with the video where you can download the source code file once I clean it up and remove the my app secrets from there and a few other things. Make sure it's all ready for you. You can download that source code and take a look at it.